Okay, sorry about that. Wait, tell me if I'm too loud. I'm back. Sound should be working now. Are we good now? It's because I switched from using two different microphones, and I have to tell it what microphone it's hooked up to because it doesn't know that. Um, I also turned up my mic volume today a little bit more than normal, because I was worried if it was too quiet, but tell me if it gets too loud now. I can't tell on my end where it's at. So let me know if that's good. I was just saying that I'm here, I'm back home. I actually have the physical book, and my ebook version, the chapter that we're starting on today, 103, it was suffering with 4 Fs, but in the physical book it is just regular suffering. So I don't know how that happened. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Awesome. Oh, Henry, you just got back home? Nice. I heard you were delayed, or you kept your trains were delayed, so I'm glad you just got back home. Also, Nina warned me that today's stream might be a little bit spicy. So I tried to prepare myself for that. And I can be whatever I want to be in the chat. So I have some idea of what we're in for today. Just so y'all are aware, use headphones if you have them, I guess. And I am Henry. Well, I'm glad you made it on the flight. I guess this wasn't intentional, but I guess in honor of a spicy stream today, this is the mug that I picked out. My girlfriend got this for me. She found it at a Goodwill. So, I guess we all know what that frog is doing. And I truly don't know where this mug came from, like, how it made its way to Goodwill in Georgia. It has something in Russian on it, on the other side. It's very appropriate for today. So, we are on page 59 for chapter 103, Suffering. The huts were small, with little distance between each one and its neighboring abode. On top of that, the bat demons were a shameless bunch. Soundproofing was the furthest thing from their minds while building these huts. Some probably felt it was more thrilling this way. But Gumong and Moshi were mortified. The 2 bat demons were in quite a hurry and wasted no time getting down to business. They had to be pressed up right against the wall. Gumong and Moshi could hear faint, wet squelches. Gumong peeked over at Moshi. He couldn't see Moshi's expression in the dark, but the man was radiating an almost physical gloominess. Gumong cleared his throat, turned his clear blue eyes toward the hut ceiling, and began to hum. Moshi stared at him like he was a madman. He was looking for a way to distract himself from the uncomfortable noises of the demon beasts next door, which he quickly managed to do. In the past, Gumong had played songs for all sorts of occasions on his suona. The melody he hummed now was every bit as brassy as the ones he used to favor, with many twists and turns. While those 2 bats were immersed in each other on the other side of the wall, Gumong was humming a little tune in an impossibly infuriating style. He'd originally just meant to mask those intrusive sounds, but all these melodies were songs from Chonghua that he'd forgotten when he lost his memories. He'd played some of them at Jiang Yeshui's wedding. Others he'd played in trenches choked with the smoke of war. Back when he made these notes sing on his suona, there had been many people by his side. Lu Jianxing hollering, Jiang Yeshue smiling. Those army ruffians sprawled out beneath the splendid, spangled sky, raising cups of wine to their lips as they laughed and watched him by the dancing light of the bonfire. Moshi, too, would be among the crowd, gazing at him with those night-dark eyes that shone so bright. As Gumong hummed, he stopped caring about the noises from next door. He shifted into a more comfortable position, lying back in the pile of straw with his arms pillowed behind his head, bouncing one long leg as he focused on the melody. After a time, he paused. He turned to Moshi, who was sitting in the darkness, and asked teasingly, "Do you like it?" "You want to bring the neighbors over?" Moshi replied darkly. "I won't." Gumong leaned back against the straw, one hand tapping his knee, softly keeping time. "Watch. They can't stop me." A few minutes later, the sounds on the other side of the wall were replaced by angry pounding. Moshi looked at him reproachfully. His eyes seemed to say, "What are you going to do about this?" Gumong was in no rush. He tied off his tune with a grace note and let the sound fade. "What's wrong, dear neighbors?" he asked lazily. "What are you doing in there? Are you screwing or not?" The male bat demon growled from the other side. Hearing him say screwing so obscenely, Moshi seemed to choke. They can cast a silencing spell, can't they? Or a silencing spell would silence them, but it doesn't stop them from hearing other things, right? Blue, Gumong is also singing the Make a Man Out of You song. Well, if the bats are getting down to business. Yep. But Gumong was a vulgar person, so he laughed. "Oh, we're screwing all right." Moshi stared in silence. "Then what are you singing for?" "That's just how I am. When I'm enjoying myself, I like to hum a tune." The rage of the bat demon next door could have burned through both walls. "When you get done good, you like to hum Moon Reflected in the Pool?" he snarled. There's a footnote. That is a formal, mournful, traditional song. Yep. When I come, I even double the tempo. This response silenced the bat demon along with Moshi. Bouncing a slender leg, Gumong toyed with a piece of straw as he continued, unabashed. "It's just a personal quirk. We were here first. If you don't like it, pick a room farther away." He paused, then added roguishly, "The demon I'm with is a great lay. Once I really get into it, who knows, I might find myself singing a jig or two. Brother, are you sure you don't want to move?" The bat demons next door muttered curses at him. Despite their eagerness, it seemed they couldn't maintain the mood under threat of such a performance. The firebat tribe was hedonistic and single-minded. In the heat of the moment, the last thing they wanted to deal with was a lunatic who sang double time when he came. After kicking the wall and swearing a few more times, the other couple left to find another hut. Listening to their shouts of lunatic and freak as they hurried away, Gumong cackled silently in the pile of straw. As soon as they were gone for good, he couldn't hold back his laughter any longer. His shoulders shook, mirth coursing through him like ripples through water. "Ha ha ha ha. You," Moshi said. "Arguing or explaining really won't do you any good sometimes." Gumong looked at Moshi with gleaming blue eyes, misty with suppressed laughter. He grinned. "You've got to either ignore them or prove you're crazier than they are. Works every time. But Shiha-jun, I'm afraid you couldn't learn this trick. You're far too prim and proper." Moshi said nothing. Several minutes passed, and Gumong felt they'd waited long enough. He pushed himself up from the pile of straw and took a step toward the door. Perhaps he'd gotten up too quickly after being sprawled out on his back for so long. He immediately felt lightheaded. Even while angry with him, Moshi's question was reflexive. "What's wrong?" "I don't know. I'm a little dizzy." Gumong rubbed his forehead. "I'll be all right in a bit." He crossed to the doorway, twitched the bamboo curtain aside with a pinky, and peered out. There were only a few bat demons in sight. Most had already paired off and disappeared into the thatched huts flanking the path. The pavilion made of human bones was deserted but for the faint haze of incense smoke glowing softly in the light of the moon. Gumong waved Moshi over. "All right, we can sneak out now." Moshi came to stand beside him. The two watched through the crack as the last pair of bat demons ducked into a hut. Gumong reached out to lift the curtain. The instant he touched it, a red bat insignia glowed to life on the surface, so suddenly it burned Gumong's fingers. He snatched his hand back. "What the hell?" he exclaimed. Moshi reached out as well and received a similar scorching. "There's a barrier on the door," he murmured. Barrier techniques had never been Gumong's strong suit, but they happened to be Moshi's. Slender, pale fingers moved over the barrier sigil inch by inch, reading the spiritual energy flow. His brows drew together in a frown. It's a one-way barrier. Anyone can enter from outside, but to leave from inside. Moshi hummed quizzically, as though he thought he might have read it wrong. He ran his fingers over the edge of the bat sigil a few more times. Whatever suspicions he held seemed to be confirmed. Moshi's expression turned ugly as he lowered his hand in silence. "What is it?" Gumong asked. Moshi said nothing. He walked back to the straw heap, sat down, and closed his eyes. "We'll wait until daybreak to leave." Gumong's eyes flew wide in surprise. "Why?" "Don't ask questions." So they're stuck together in this hut. In the glow of the barrier's red light, Gumong could see Moshi wore an expression of embarrassment. Just as Gumong was about to say more, another wave of dizziness washed over him. He had no choice but to stand quietly and wait for it to pass before walking over to Moshi and sitting down. Gumong was clever. If Moshi wasn't willing to explain, he could guess. This barrier doesn't stop people from entering, but it stops them from leaving. Then its purpose must be to ensure those who enter complete some task before they leave. All the thatched huts must have the same barrier as this one. We can't get out, but those two bat demons from before could. Moshi didn't reply. As Gumong thought it over, his gaze roving back and forth inside the room, it gradually dawned on him. There was nothing here except a pile of soft, thick straw. The bat demons entered to do one thing: dual cultivate and send the spiritual energy they created into their queen's pavilion. Okay, so I don't know what's gonna happen yet, but I was assuming we were gonna have, like, a flashback. But now, don't know. He glanced at Moshi's shuddered expression once more. The answer was plain. I get it. The barrier will check to see if the people inside have had sex or not. It won't let out the ones that haven't, right? Moshi neither confirmed nor denied. As soon as the sun comes up, the barrier will lose its effect. We can go at dawn. But this dawn wouldn't come so easily. Gumong tossed and turned, uncomfortable and unable to find sleep. The dizziness from earlier hadn't receded. If anything, it had intensified. He felt as though a fire had sparked to life in his belly, the dry heat spreading like ink on paper, rendering his breaths harsh and labored. At first, Gumong thought he'd overtaxed his weakened body, so he put his discomfort out of his mind. But as it worsened, that strange heat made him prickle all over. Even his fingertips were trembling. By now, Gumong couldn't possibly fail to realize what was going on. He sat bolt upright, panting lowly, and yanked open his lapels. He stared at the moon outside the bamboo curtain, his eyes flashing as he recalled what he'd seen in the pavilion. "Bad news," he said. "There's a problem with that fragrance from the blood pool." He swiped a hand over his face and patted his cheeks, trying to make himself more alert. "Moshi?" Moshi was sitting with his back against the straw heap. He hadn't slept. At the sound of Gumong's voice, he turned. "Do you feel weird at all?" Gumong asked. "No. What's the problem?" Gumong swallowed. Those fire bats hadn't gone running into the huts just because of the Queen's command. The fragrance released from the blood pool contained an aphrodisiac. But why wasn't it affecting Moshi? Was it because he hadn't gone to the pool and only breathed in a small amount of the scent in the air? Blue, you can tell that Meat Bun was rubbing her hands and cackling while she wrote this. Yeah. Noting his silence, Moshi asked, "Is something the matter?" Gumong paused. "No." He lay back down on the straw, his back to Moshi, and began silently reciting sutras, trying to suppress the agitation that was growing stronger and stronger. But whatever fragrance the Bat Queen had poured into the blood pool was extremely potent, the equivalent of casting a spell on all the inhabitants of the pavilion to send them into heat. Unbeknownst to Gumong, this perfume only affected demons. Moshi was a human. Of course he wouldn't feel anything. But Gumong was different. His body had been tempered in the Liao Kingdom, fused with the essence of a snow fey wolf's soul. So, I know we had some ideas, but we're just kind of suddenly getting, like, verified information about this now. Okay. Even if the fragrance didn't have as strong an effect on him as on pure demons, it was still frightfully powerful. After reciting a heart-calming sutra 7 times over, he couldn't alleviate the dry heat burning through his body. Gumong grimaced and curled in on himself as he faced the wall, his breaths slowly quickening. What the hell? Demon beasts were different from humans. Under normal conditions, humans could overcome their lust. It was uncomfortable, certainly, to be left without relief in the thick of desire, but it was no more than discomfort. Beasts and demons were not the same. When animals in heat couldn't find relief, their lustful torment was agonizing. Even their bones ached with it. Gumong swallowed thickly and closed his eyes. He didn't want Moshi to discover the state he was in, but he couldn't control the effects of the incense, which seemed to take hold of his body as if in retaliation for his abstention. Because he hadn't obeyed the fragrance's commands, every sense that triggered lust was amplified. He could smell that scent he knew too well on Moshi's body, his faint, distinctive fragrance, and the masculine musk beneath. Gumong's hands balled into fists in the straw. He bit his lip and slowed his breaths by sheer will, but he couldn't suppress the pounding of his heart. Right now, he truly hated this body the Liao Kingdom had tempered. This body that ran with beastly blood, that forced him to submit to the aphrodisiac and recall those absurd, passionate scenes of the past. Gumong's lashes fluttered, hiding the wetness in his eyes. "I can't think about it. I won't think about it." Shattered images flashed before him, defying all reason. The lust in him longed for Moshi's scent to envelop him, yearned for Moshi to embrace him from behind as he had in the past, pressing his searing chest to Gumong's spine. It demanded that they make love just as wildly as they had back then, that thick root pushing into yielding spring mud, the air filling with the earthy scent of petrichor. Sorry, I just kind of remember something where Meat Bun used that metaphor in Arha. I guess she likes that one. The soil was soft and saturated, and when that great cedar dove in, rivulets of spring water burst from its depths, pooling on the forest floor. Can't think about it. Won't think about it. But somehow what sprang to mind was the scalding heat of Moshi's breath when he bit Gumong's earlobe, his ragged panting in the heat of desire. Gumong. A questioning voice, its timbre low and alluring, broke through those torrid memories. Curled up with his back to Moshi, Gumong shuddered against his will. Try as he might to hide it, Moshi still noticed something amiss. What's wrong? The instant Gumong opened his mouth, his voice was so hoarse even he was taken aback. He swallowed, forcing his voice to steadiness, hoping he sounded a little more distant and a little less shaky. I'm thinking about some personal matters. It's none of your business. These words were frosty, and Moshi was prideful. As Gumong expected, he dropped the issue after being jabbed like that. Gumong breathed a soft sigh of relief as he lay facing the wall of the hut, worrying his lip between his teeth. When he opened his eyes, they glimmered with scattered light. He was in such pain they had already filled with tears. The desire induced by the fragrance was insidious. The harder he tried to suppress it, the stronger it became. Gumong's senses screamed. They couldn't endure any more stimulation. He had merely heard Moshi's voice, and he could feel his body going weak. In the secret recesses of his heart, he found himself thinking how that voice had once murmured his name against the back of his ear, while its owner held him from behind, thrusting into him as the sweat between their bodies threatened to fuse them together. Gradually, Gumong's vision blurred. It was too hot. It was genuinely too hot. His heart was beating so rapidly. He wished the time mirror hadn't given him his memories back. Wouldn't he be better off now if he was still the version of himself who knew nothing of passion? Wow, what a time for some pop-up to open on my computer. Okay. Then he wouldn't remember any of these absurdities from the past, nor the thrill and pleasure of sharing Moshi's bed. Gumong squeezed his eyes shut. He was on the verge of falling apart. The snow fey-wolf blood was welcoming the poison inside his body without hesitation, burning away his human rationality piece by piece. The man he loved, the man he'd slept with, his only beloved, the one he was doomed to part with, the one he wanted but could never have, that man was right behind him, only a few steps away. And they were in a nest beasts used for running, filled with the heady scent of sex. The hand Gumong clenched beneath the straw was trembling, his tendons protruding. He was afraid that, in the next second, Wu Yan's maddening miasma would destroy him, and he would do something reckless, something regrettable. After a moment of hesitation, his blue eyes snapped open. He reached down as if he'd made up his mind. With his back to Moshi, Gumong unfastened his belt and took hold of himself with a shaking hand. He swallowed the groan that threatened to escape. Gumong's clear blue eyes were wide as he panted in silence. It had been a very long time since he'd done anything like this. He had to avoid Moshi's notice, so he moved surreptitiously. His hand stroked clumsily up and down, but it was like giving a parched traveler a single sip of water. Wetting his lips begat an even greater heat and thirst. He couldn't speed up or tighten his grip. He couldn't make any conspicuous sounds. It was like drinking poison to slake his thirst. Slowly, the rims of Gumong's eyes grew red from discomfort and frustration. The Fey Wolf blood rushing through his veins was about to drive him mad. But he couldn't even moan aloud. Even with his last scrap of rationality, he remembered he shouldn't get involved with Mo Shi. On the day he chose to defect, he had pushed Mo Shi to the side, then dug a chasm seething with hatred between them. He shouldn't have gotten close to them again. A strong hand grabbed him from behind. Gumong flinched violently. He heard Mo Shi's voice. "Don't move." His thoughts were in such disarray, the physical simulation so devastating, that Gumong hadn't noticed anything while so focused on chasing his own release. When those warm, firm, familiar arms caught him by surprise and pulled him into an embrace, Gumong's eyes flew open. The shock of it, the overwhelming thrill of it, dragged a moan from him. I'm not reading the moans. I don't think I could do it. He saw sparks. For an instant, his head spun. Everything was blurry, yet he instinctively tried to escape. He felt shame, alarm, contrition. By the time Mo Shi's hand wrapped around him, Gumong was nearly in tears. There was pleasure, yes, but also a despairing reluctance. Mo Shi's low voice sounded in his ear, just like in his memories, except this time it held hesitation and resentment. "This is what you meant when you said you were fine?" Oh boy. That's the end of the chapter. And I just want to note that the chapter ends on page 69. We're at chapter 104 on page 71, which is called Inseparable Hearts. I'm just gonna take a minute. Not Henry the Imagination. Yeah, exactly. Y'all can use your imagination. Well. War Dove. Yeah, go. You're going to hide in a closet of all places? Okay. Mo Shi had realized something was wrong with Gumong a long time ago. It was just that after each round of questioning, Gumong insisted he was fine. Mo Shi truly didn't want anything to happen between them that shouldn't. Although he was fully aware of what was going on, he did nothing. But the straw hut was too small. He couldn't stop himself from glancing again and again at that man curled up in the corner, as far away from Mo Shi as he could manage. He knew Gumong was unwell and trying to hide it. He'd even noticed when Gumong's hand started to move. In Mo Shi's eyes, Gumong had really let go of the past, and really wanted nothing more to do with him. So, even this dissolute army ruffian who'd once laughed and said, "It's just sleeping together. It's good as long as both people enjoy it," would rather suffer in silence and touch himself than reveal his arousal to Mo Shi. This man could smile at Jiang Yeshui and speak nicely with Murong Chuyi. He could even be warm and soft to the little bird he brought back mere hours ago. It was only toward Mo Shi he was cold. Gumong had really let go of him. Mo Shi wanted to pretend he hadn't seen anything. The pathetic scrap of self-respect and pride he retained urged him to turn aside. But when he heard Gumong's suppressed, painful panting, he couldn't bear it. In the end, he didn't even know what he was feeling as he rose and approached that curled-up silhouette, bending down and taking him into his arms. Gumong's instant flinch of surprise and muted groan set Moshi's heart trembling. Moshi steeled himself, then resolutely broke his vow not to touch Gumong again. He took that pitiable shaft into his hand. Gumong unthinkingly pressed back into Moshi's chest, his jaw tilting, his neck arching. Don't. Close your eyes. Just pretend it isn't me. Moshi's voice was low and husky. Gumong's brow furrowed, words stuck in his throat. His body was in such a fragile state, but his soul remained unyielding. He wanted to say, "How could it be anyone but you?" "It's always been you, Moshi, only you." But in the end, this unspeakable love could only ever be just that, something he wanted to say, and nothing more. One thought the other had severed all ties, and the other thought his own heart made of iron and steel. Each had their reasons, both unwilling to open their hearts to each other again. It didn't matter. Passion and desire were a bottomless abyss, and they had already stepped into that nothingness long ago, tumbling endlessly downward. It was all darkness, and the only thing they could hold on to was each other. Moshi's hand started moving, and the last of Gumong's resistance collapsed. The final mote of clarity he had was just enough to keep him from calling Moshi's name in the heat of passion. He was like a beast trapped in the sea of desire, struggling desperately to free himself from this cage of bygone love, but there was no escape. Moshi knew him too well. He stirred the fire within him too easily, weakening his limbs, drawing moans from his lips. Gumong threw his head back, panting in Moshi's embrace. His disappointing flesh, so prone to tears, had already allowed his eyes to redden, their slender corners misty with unshed tears. He trembled all over, slack in Moshi's arms. Clinging to that last thread of rationality, he hoarsely cried, Let go of me." His tone was harsh, but his voice was unsurpassingly soft, quavering like it might melt. He'd meant it to be a fierce rebuke, yet it left his mouth as an unintelligible moan. "Please, let go." In the end, Gumong's cries devolved into pathetic begging. Heaven only knew how much agony he was in, forced to take control of his love, at the same time as he wrestled with his primal desire. He'd lost his memories, walked down a path of no return, and had two souls carved out of him. He didn't know how long he could keep the awareness the time mirror had returned to him. He didn't know if this clarity the heavens had bestowed in pity would be taken from him just as easily. He had lost so much. The man behind him was the last bit of light and warmth he had to hold. But still he restrained himself. Let me go," Gumong cried brokenly. "Let me go. Don't come closer. I've been tempered with bestial blood, but I'm still human. I would still feel unwilling. I would still regret the path I chose. But I can't turn back, so please, stop torturing me. All that lies before me is a frigid night. Your warmth will make me hesitate, will keep me from moving forward. I'm already a traitor. Moshi, I don't want to be a coward, too." As Moshi held him, he too was in pain. Between the two of them, who was supposed to let go? Who was supposed to release the other? Since Gumong didn't want Moshi to touch him, Moshi had uttered that pathetic line, "Just pretend it isn't me." Word of, I also didn't like that thought that the memories could go away again. I'm sorry, I didn't know that was on the table. But also, I just have to pause and say, I shouldn't be surprised that Meat Bun just has oh, here's a sex scene, but also it's very emotionally painful. Because why not? And yet, Gumong still rejected him. This jolt of pain made Moshi loosen his grip. Like a swallow freed, Gumong startled up from the ground and made a valiant attempt to get to his feet so he could put some distance between himself and Moshi. But the demon blood was surging inside him, and his desire clouded everything. He felt weak, utterly sapped of strength. After unsteadily lifting his shoulders, he fell right back into the straw. How many unknown pairs of demons had coupled in this hut? The golden straw was suffused with a sharp musk. A muffled whimper issued from Gumong's throat. He turned over, his clear blue eyes wide and vacant. He watched Moshi stand up, and he saw his own reflection in Moshi's eyes. This was honestly pathetic. He knew what a sight he was, while here was Moshi, still so properly attired. Even his lapels remained neatly folded. The fragrance's effects were roiling stronger and stronger inside Gumong. He knitted his brows in pain. Lifting a hand to ward him off, he began, "You." He wanted to say, "You need to go away. Stop looking." But the dry heat was rushing upward. He bit down on his lip and didn't finish his sentence. Moshi misunderstood. He thought Gumong had reached out to pull him closer, and took hold of Gumong's hand. It was like lava bursting through rock at long last. The whisper of skin against skin finally broke Gumong's self-imposed shackles. He had been strained to his very limit. With this touch, human reason yielded to demon blood. He couldn't get up. Instead, he dragged Moshi down. Caught off guard, Moshi fell heavily on top of him. Their combined weight sank into the soft straw. Gumong arched his neck and grimaced, a muted groan issuing from his throat. He was shaking unbearably. As he pressed close to Moshi, he could feel that long-lost desire, that terrifying hardness, pressing into his abdomen through both their clothes. Whatever remaining strength he had fled. His lips quivered, and his blue eyes glimmered with shattered light. He had managed to say, "Let go of me," earlier, but the intense, bestial lust in him now burned red-hot, dyeing the rims of his eyes scarlet. He could only gaze at Moshi's handsome face and bite his lip, unable to say a thing. Instinct made him sincere, urged him to speak the truth. All these years, after all these years, he had done countless ruthless deeds and walked countless bloody roads. He had abandoned everything, save for Moshi. Gumong hadn't abandoned Moshi. He had cut himself away from him. Holding the knife, inch by inch, he'd carved into his own flesh and dug Moshi out of his heart. Only after he'd come out of the mirror with those lost memories did he truly reunite with Moshi. When he'd seen Moshi amid that bloody rain, his heart had raced frantically, but he buried it all beneath callous apathy. But how could that be the honest truth? He loved him so much, missed him so much. He missed him in the barracks, missed him in battle, missed him in every plaintive melody. In the depths of his shattered memories, he loved him, cherished him, and longed for him. He tore into his lip viciously, tears shining in his eyes. It was partly because of this tortuous desire, but even more because he really had been destroyed so utterly. He wanted, more than anything, to be recklessly selfish for once. He wanted to say, "Just fuck me, okay? Fuck me. Please. Save me. I've been soaking in a sea of blood for 8 years. Will you hold me again?" "Oh, I missed you, Moshi. After I cut you out of my heart, that scar never healed." Gumong blinked, feeling something wet and hot spill from his eyes and drip into his hair. Moshi reached out to touch his face, but he snatched Moshi's hand. Mustering all his strength and awareness, he rasped, "Fuck me." He saw something flash in Moshi's eyes, a light that had nothing to do with lust. Gumong felt as if his heart was being cut out, as if he was being cooked alive. He closed his eyes and swallowed. I will pretend. Those fingers around Moshi's wrist were shaking. I will pretend you're someone else. He opened his eyes to see that the spark in Moshi's gaze had gone out. In its place was a frost that could chill one to the bone. He looked deeply wounded. But just as Gumong was accustomed to using laughter to hide his heart, his little shidi, Moshi, had finally learned to use coldness to hide his feelings. His Moshi would never again be the youth who rushed to confess his love on a snowy night. Neither could return to who they used to be. In those black eyes, pain sank beneath the ice that floated up. As you wish. Moshi ground the words between his teeth. Gumong felt himself flipped over with a terrifying brusqueness. A hand pressed him face down in the straw. This position, and this setting, it was purely a physical release. It had nothing to do with love. The aphrodisiac had left Gumong achingly sensitive. His skin bloomed red in the wake of Moshi's touch. He kept his head down amid the golden stalks, his face pillowed on one soft cheek as he struggled for breath. His mind was a morass. He felt Moshi unceremoniously tear off his clothes. His hands seemed to move with vengeance or with rage. Before he removed Gumong's underclothes, Moshi pressed against him through that final thin layer, hot as a brand, and viciously thrust forward. Yeah, this is really the meat bun special. Gumong gasped aloud at that feeling he'd craved for so long, crying out hoarsely as his fingers clenched around a handful of straw. How useless he was. This man who had been losing and losing since the Battle of Phoenix Cry Mountain, to the imperial court, to political machinations, and now he was losing to desire. Moshi unfastened his own black iron belt buckle with a crisp clink. Imagine whomever you'd like. Gumong buried his face in the pile of straw, unable to say a single word. He hardened against his will at Moshi's touch. Moshi picked him up and sat him between his legs, facing away, that thin layer of underclothes the last thing separating them. Moshi's cock was already fully erect, pressing menacingly between Gumong's thighs, but not yet forcing its way in. He held Gumong in his lap as he caressed his feverish and sensitive body from behind. Rough hands pulled Gumong's lapels aside and pinched at his hardened nipples. Gumong panted, caged between Moshi's legs. He couldn't help the hoarse moan that spilled from him, but just as he gasped, Moshi's fingers pushed into his mouth. They'd engaged in plenty of outlandish acts in the past. Back then, Gumong had coaxed Moshi along and taught him, step by step. So many years had passed, but Moshi hadn't forgotten these lessons. He was only abstaining from sex. He wasn't all that innocent. It was just that he'd long ago chosen a certain person and had no desire to sleep with anyone else. Those fingers curled into Gumong's mouth and pressed down on his tongue, sliding rhythmically in and out in an unmistakable cadence. That stiffened cock beneath him was also thrusting again and again against his underclothes. At each motion, Gumong let out a muted groan. The demon blood in his body made him more sensitive. His pants were already growing damp. He hazily tried to turn, to glimpse the man he loved so deeply. But Moshi removed his own pitch-black hair ribbon and bound it over Gumong's eyes. You. Oh boy. I'm sure you'll feel better if you don't have to see my face. Long lashes trembled beneath the ribbon. Gumong didn't know what kind of expression Moshi wore when he said these words. He hadn't time to consider it before he was pushed into the soft straw. He felt coolness on his lower half, Moshi had torn away that final layer of clothing. Gumong swallowed thickly. He couldn't think anymore. His mind was blank. But this wasn't a comfort to him. His need was about to be satisfied, but his sanity was on the verge of destruction. Moshi didn't kiss him, nor did he lovingly caress him. In the past, Moshi had always approached Gumong with adoration. This was the first time he'd ever simply stripped Gumong's clothes and taken out his cock to press it between his legs. The wetness at its tip slicked over his entrance, rubbing back and forth. "Why are you shaking so much?" Gumong couldn't respond. Moshi was holding him from behind, but Gumong's legs felt completely boneless. He was pushing his body to its limit just to stay upright. He wasn't trembling from pleasure or out of fear. He and Moshi had made love so many times. He could still feel the ghost of it, regardless of how many years had passed. His mouth wobbled. "It's fine," Gumong forced himself to say. But when Moshi touched the ribbon that covered his eyes, he found it soaked with tears. "Does it bother you so much to be with me?" Gumong's teeth sank into his wet lower lip. He couldn't see, but he could feel Moshi take hold of his jaw, forcing him to turn his head. His lips were so close Gumong could feel every breath. "Even though the aphrodisiac got you into this state, you still don't want to do this with me. Is that right?" Only silence answered him. "Gumong," Moshi continued, "how you must loathe me." He picked up Gumong and laid him face up, back in the hay. Gumong didn't know what was happening. He reached up to pull the ribbon off and felt his wrist yanked back down. Moshi had been driven crazy. He was such an upright person, but his suppressed emotions twisted his voice almost past recognition. He didn't let Gumong touch the ribbon. Instead, he lifted Gumong's legs and bent to pin him beneath his body. Gumong had nearly bitten through his lip to silence himself, yet the press of that firm and hot chest still wrung a tiny, broken whimper from him. Moshi brought the wet tip of his cock to Gumong's soft, quivering entrance, nudging against it, but not pushing in. Very quickly, Gumong could bear no more. "Moshi," he gasped impatiently. "Are you sure you want to call my name?" Gumong swallowed hard. Even his toes were curled tight. "You—" The tip of that burning shaft breached him, and Gumong arched his back and cried out. Demon beasts frequently coupled with no regard for sex, and Gumong's tempered body possessed certain of their traits. Sorry, I just, okay. Gumong's tempered body possessed certain of their traits. His hole could secrete the same thick fluid as the demon tribe. Moshi clenched his jaw. How? I'm sorry. Moshi clenched his jaw. "How are you so wet?" He was wet. He could feel it. Gumong panted for breath. His entrance was already ridiculously soft and slick. Moshi had only thrust the head halfway in, but his hole was already sucking thirstily at Moshi's cock. When Moshi moved, soft, wet sounds issued from where they were joined. Gumong shivered with the thrill of it. Inside, "Hurry up." Gumong was almost sobbing. "Who are you thinking of?" Gumong whimpered. "I can't take any more." Even a gentleman could be driven insane. Moshi had never considered himself a gentleman, and Gumong, well, he really had pushed him too far. After barely entering, Moshi pulled out again. Gumong's legs wrapped limply around Moshi's trim waist, shaking and helpless. "Is it Lu Jianxing? Or someone you met in the Liao Kingdom? Or—" Moshi gritted his teeth. "That black-clad man who convinced you to defect inside the time mirror?" "No," Gumong's chest heaved. No, no. Or is it the man who gave you that brocade pouch? The one I've never even heard of? Dazed and near tears, Gumong mumbled, I don't know, as if he hadn't heard a single word Moshi said. I don't know. He had been pushed to the edge of his endurance, his cock painfully hard. Any more, and he wouldn't know if Moshi was helping him with the poison or aggravating his torture. Stop asking me, Gumong hoarsely cried, his hands scrabbling for purchase. Finding Moshi's wrist, his fingers closed around it in an iron grip. Come in. Fuck me. It hurts. Neither of them made a sound. Just as Gumong became convinced that Moshi would abandon him, his legs were viciously yanked upward. Moshi didn't know if he was doing this for his own pride, for Gumong's feelings, or so that two people with inseparable hearts, whom fate had sundered, could finally find a hard-won excuse to lose themselves in each other. The truth was, in the depths of their hearts, they had yearned for such an excuse for a very long time. Tonight is only to help you with the poison. Don't, Moshi paused. Don't think of it as anything more. That's the end of the chapter. Yeah. I can tell that there's art in a couple of pages, and I'm like, what in God's name is that going to be? What do we need to blame you and Rui for? Oh, the word clench. Yeah, I don't know. Things like that do make me wish I knew Chinese so I could read the original and, like, understand, understand, like, the context of the wording, but, blue. Oh, it's like that kind of art. Like, I cannot show it on stream for real. Okay, well, when we get there, I'll just, yeah, okay. Thank you. Can I be honest? I might have just forgotten, like, some of the art from Arha. That's entirely possible, but I didn't think that, Seven Seas, like, Danmei actually had explicit art. Okay. It's not a spoiler. Yeah, no. I can't show that on stream. Henry, for the cheap price of $5,000, I'll ask my Laoshi tomorrow how to say clench in Mandarin. Okay, Blue, this is the most explicit Seven Seas art you've seen. Okay, well that's something. Well, that was weirdly very depressing. Just generally a roller coaster. So thank you, Meat Bun, for that. And kind of ABO adjacent, I guess, or just straight up it is ABO. I don't even know what to call it. So I'm gonna take a break for 5 to 10 minutes, and when we come back, we will be on page 83 for chapter 105, which is called Relieving Poison. Did this really went on for an entire chapter? Did this really went on? I mean, yeah, it over a chapter. That's a new record, I think, for this series. If I remember correctly. So yeah, I'll be back in a moment after I get the break screen up again, because I forgot to do that before we started. Okay, Hello, I'm back. Back to whatever the heck this is. And I was just thinking about something, and I think y'all were talking about it in the chat, that I agree. I'm really glad we're getting, like, some of Gumong's feelings. Because the thing that I've noticed since I started reading Danmei is how you get a little bit of multiple characters' perspectives, like, in the narration. And I actually really love that. I don't know if it could at any point be considered head hopping, but I see that the way that it's executed in, like, a positive way, and I really like it. But I think what Meat Bun was doing with this series was kind of like, we didn't really start getting into Gumong's head fully until after he came back from the time mirror and actually had his memories. So it makes sense, like, within the narrative, and I really, really like that. It was like a little bit jarring at first. I think maybe it was last stream that we were really getting some of his first internal thoughts, and I was like, what? When did this start happening? But it completely makes sense to me. So we're on page 83, chapter 105, Relieving Poison, and we're just getting right back into it. Gumong's entrance was so hot and wet, Moshi didn't need to open him like in the past. He only pushed 2 fingers inside, bending and working them, and that slick warmth sucked them in. Moshi inhaled sharply. So the Liao Kingdom's tempering had extended even to this. As he thought of that brocade pouch with its unknown giver, and the black-clad man in the mirror who'd pushed Gumong to defect, he suddenly felt unsure. Was Gumong's current state merely a side effect of the demon blood in him, or had someone molded him to this purpose? He'd thought the Liao Kingdom only needed a commander, and not a plaything, but Gumong's newfound sensitivity set his imagination running wild. He stared down at the face obscured by his black ribbon and withdrew his sticky fingers. Gumong had been panting through parted lips all along, but when Moshi's fingers slipped out, his brow furrowed deeply, and he began to shake. Moshi knew the poison had nearly broken him. He would collapse if he didn't find release soon. He smeared that wetness over his own straining erection and lined himself up, ghosting against Gumong's slick and eager hole. Gumong's fingers were clutching at the straw, his bestial instinct growing stronger and stronger as his human rationality dwindled to nothing. His scalp prickled at the sensation of a blazing hot cock pressed to his rim. And there's the art that I cannot show, but it's in the Discord. His legs unwittingly spread wider, welcoming and begging that man to thrust in. Come in. Fuck me. Moshi. The syllables of his name broke like a sob as they escaped Gumong's lips, finally setting Moshi's desire ablaze. His eyes darkened as he took hold of Gumong's hips and slowly pressed his thick shaft inside. Gumong's tempered body clenched, tightening thirstily around his length, the warm slickness responding audibly to the intrusion. Ah, Gumong knitted his brows, arching his neck as he gasped, "Come in, all the way." Gumong's body now could be fucked as easily as any demon beast. Moshi was terrifyingly large. In the past, Gumong would be shaking from pain by the time he was halfway inside. Yet tonight, Gumong had taken it so quickly that he still craved the feeling of being stretched. Moshi couldn't say what he felt. Impatience, worry, heartbreak. Regardless of all else, the physical pleasure was undeniable. Gumong had been gone for 8 years, and he had been abstinent for 8 years until today, when pretense allowed them to entwine once more. Faster. Fuck me harder. As Moshi viciously thrust in, Gumong's moans rose in pitch. The hut filled with the sound of their rough panting. Gumong's legs, already shaking and weak, were locked around Moshi's slender waist. Unable to see, he only felt that something impossibly hot, thick, and hard had buried itself to the hilt inside him, as if it wanted to pierce his belly through. To be taken so forcefully and invaded so thoroughly by pleasure was like drowning. Gumong, irreparably broken, mumbled dazedly, "Come in. All the way in." Moshi leaned forward to grab Gumong's hand and forced him to press down on his own abdomen. "Can you feel it? In all these years, who else has fucked you this full? If anyone has. Could he satisfy you? Could he fuck you this deep?" His voice had always been low and sensual. Now it was even more alluringly husky. His head was lowered, his lips almost brushing Gumong's ear. When the fevered heat of Moshi's breath fanned his face, Gumong's eyes went glassy and unfocused beneath the blindfold. Before Gumong could return to his senses, Moshi began to move, driving hard and fast into his soaked and clenching body. Scalding heat surged into Gumong, each stroke threatening to run his soul through. The love he was denied and the lust he was lost within became a roaring spring that engulfed him totally. There were no sounds in the hut except the clap of flesh against flesh, the soft, slick noises that accompanied each thrust, Gumong's half-lucid moans, and Moshi's ragged breathing. "Deeper, Moshi. Moshi, go deeper." Scorching hardness and clenching walls melted together, loath to part, love and desire becoming water that flowed between them. Gumong's every moan earned him a vicious thrust, filling him to the brim each time. Caught in the pleasure of being fucked so hard, past the point of endurance, Gumong desperately clung to the man atop him. Their skin beaded with sweat that mingled, seeming to draw them ever closer. In the throes of this fervid entanglement, Gumong all too quickly came apart. He was so close, he lifted his hips to welcome Moshi's thrusts. Moshi knew precisely where he was most sensitive and made sure to hit it with every stroke, making Gumong's skin tingle with pleasure. But his bestial instinct and the aphrodisiac demanded more. He wanted Moshi to fuck him deeper, to hammer that spot harder, so he canted his hips to meet Moshi's again and again. "Right there. Fuck me," he gasped. "Moshi." Just as Gumong was on the cusp of release, Moshi suddenly pulled out. A shudder racked Gumong, as if his soul would leave his body along with that heavy shaft. Slick dripped out after it, the sensation so unpleasant Gumong's toes twitched. "Moshi?" Gumong said in confusion and torment. Gumong heard a soft sigh right by his ear. "Didn't you say you didn't want it to be me?" He found himself hauled upright and flipped over, on your hands and knees. Moshi's grip tightened on Gumong's hips as he lined himself up, took a breath, and thrust all the way in. The sensation of being fucked from behind was much more intense. Moshi grabbed at the hair ribbon, forcing Gumong to arch his back. Gumong panted, whimpering brokenly as Moshi drove Gumong panted, whimpering brokenly, as Moshi drove against his prostate at a punishing pace. The two of them were in the most primal position, rutting like beasts, Gumong subjugated beneath Moshi. He was being fucked to the point of tears, until he was so hard it hurt. It felt as if his stomach would split. "Moshi." "Good?" Moshi rasped. "Yes, please, faster, I'm going to." Face down in the straw, Gumong started to cry. Moshi was fucking him with such force that his voice broke with each thrust. He was being driven insane by the pleasure and pain of a human body enduring the enormity of bestial lust. "I'm going to come." Moshi reached over and took hold of Gumong's weeping cock. Gumong's eyes immediately widened as he cried out in shock. The blindfold, loosened in the onslaught, slipped down, exposing teary blue eyes. They were utterly blank, twin pools of desire. It didn't take long for him to come in Moshi's hand, shuddering as thick liquid spilled into the straw. Moshi didn't let up for a moment, fucking him through his climax with short, sharp thrusts. Gumong came so hard he nearly lost his wits, his harsh breaths turning into sobs that transformed into shouts. I can't anymore. You're going to fuck me to death. Moshi, stop. His cries subsided into disjointed mumbling. Please. With one last spurt, Gumong went slack in Moshi's arms. But Moshi wasn't done with him, and the aphrodisiac wasn't either. Beneath the flood of pleasure that came with his release, a frisson? I do not know this word. A frisson of desire surged through him anew. This body would drive him insane. He realized that the bat demons hadn't exaggerated their urgency. Demonic instinct was much stronger than any human lust. He lay boneless beneath Moshi, dripping with sweat, cum, and slick as he let himself be fucked. The man who was once called the Beast of the Altar was mating exactly like a beast, begging to be filled, owned, and viciously stuffed full. He was flushed and feverish, unable to catch his breath. He jolted with every thrust, helpless tears filling his eyes and slipping down his cheeks. He couldn't beg Moshi to love him anymore. But at least, in this moment, under pretense of submitting to carnal desire, he could earnestly beg Moshi to take him, to fuck him. Moshi. The man behind him was just as unflagging as he was 8 years ago. Only after Gumong came a second and then a third time did Moshi's breathing finally begin to hitch. By the time Moshi was ready to come, Gumong was on the brink of madness. After a few more wild thrusts, Moshi slowed his pace. Some rational piece of his mind yet survived. He gasped for breath and said hoarsely, "I'll pull out." I wasn't as worried about this last time, but am I gonna need to like cut parts of this out of my stream after this? I don't know if YouTube is gonna care or not about this. But Gumong was delirious. He clutched Moshi's hand and turned his head to look back at him. Beneath sweat-soaked locks, blue eyes gazed tearfully, helplessly at Moshi as his glossy lips parted. "Come inside. Don't pull out." Moshi's eyes darkened. "I can't take it anymore," Gumong whimpered. "My body isn't the same as before." He lay in the straw, his voice soft with tears. "Moshi, come inside. I want you." What he wished to say was, "I want to love you. I want to take everything you have to give. I want to return to the past with you." But these were the only words that escaped his mouth. He bit down on his lip, burying his face in the crook of his arm. Only his soft, inky hair and a sliver of reddened ear remained visible. Their final entanglement was no less frenzied than that of wild beasts. Gumong couldn't even stay up on his knees, while Moshi's thrusts were quick and feverish, the smack of skin against skin filling their ears as their breathing turned to harsh gasps. "Did you mean it?" "Come for me," Gumong sobbed, lifting his hips in invitation. "Come inside. Come for me." Moshi wrapped an arm around his waist and pressed them flush together, sinking deep into the straw. This angle pushed Moshi farther inside him, driving Gumong to cry out, but Moshi covered his mouth and snapped his hips a dozen more times before burying himself as deep as he could go. Gumong sobbed into Moshi's palm, once again brought to orgasm, his spend nearly clear after so many climaxes. His body clenched rhythmically around Moshi's cock. He could vividly feel each and every spurt of liquid heat as Moshi released everything, hitting him where he was most sensitive. Gumong's toes curled. He shivered. Moshi had come inside him. Even after, Moshi remained sheathed inside his sloppy hole, slowly moving inside him, plugging him so none of that fluid dripped out. Gumong was barely conscious. The two collapsed panting into the straw. Only then did the realization steal over them. They'd gone to bed together again. Despite everything, they had really done it. Neither spoke, but Moshi slowly and hesitantly took hold of Gumong's limp hand, claiming the afterglow as excuse to interlace their shaking fingers. His mouth was so close to Gumong's temple. He could kiss his cheek if he just dipped his head. Everything seemed so much like how it had been 8 years ago, before this debt of hatred festered between them. The only thing missing was a kiss, but that kiss could never fall. Gumong's breathing gradually slowed and his lashes fluttered weakly. "Don't pull out." Moshi blinked and stilled. "In a while, the demon blood will absorb it. Once it's absorbed, then..." He paused and hoarsely said, "Then I'll be fine." But Gumong knew. This entanglement had merely satisfied his bodily desires. That hollow ache in his heart would forever eat at his bones, at his marrow. A lifetime without a cure. The absorption got me. War Dove, Meat Bun really out here publishing the most ABO sentences in the wild. We were joking about that when it was like, oh yeah, Gumong thinks he's a wolf. But I didn't think we would really get here. But here we are. At daybreak, they prepared to leave the hut. Gumong didn't say a word after it was over. When he rose to get dressed, his hands were still shaking. Moshi glanced at him and saw, by the weak morning light, that a faint flush lingered on his earlobe beneath his loose black hair. Gumong kept his head down as he straightened his lapels. His inky lashes lowered, but unable to hide the redness of his eyes. The two of them took great care with their clothes, perhaps out of embarrassment, or perhaps because they worried the others would notice something amiss. Fortunately, they had not kissed, so there were no love bites to hide. Moshi paused. "Your body." "It's the Fey-Wolf," Gumong spoke without inflection, unwilling to elaborate. "The bat demon incense was just as effective on me." He paused for a moment, then stood up. In the past, Gumong was always a bit feeble after they slept together, sometimes even stumbling. Moshi instinctively reached to help him up, but Gumong flung his hand off. He sniffed, his nose still red. "There's no need. I'm fine," he said hoarsely. His body had truly changed. These days, he could recover quickly. Holding the ribbon in his mouth, he gathered and tied up his long hair. His lips parted as he sighed. "I hope you'll excuse my behavior, Shiha-jun." Moshi's chest felt tight, but he closed his eyes and replied, "I said it was only for the poison." His voice was low. "Don't think any more on it." Gumong smiled. "It's just that, considering our current relationship, it must have been a sacrifice to help me. I can't help but apologize. Also, I behaved rather embarrassingly." Eyes the blue of deep lakes were cast down as Gumong fastened the hidden weapon compartment in his sleeve. If it's at all possible, Shiha-jun should try to forget about it. As he spoke, he pulled aside the bamboo curtain. Seeing that the bat demons were all still in their huts, he strode off toward the cave where Murong Chuyi and the others waited. Pale sunlight filtered through the black smoke over Bat Island, filling the woods with a clear coldness. Moshi turned to glance back at the thatched hut they had spent the night in. What had passed here mere hours ago was like a mirage. The excuse that allowed them to entwine so desperately was gone. In the daylight, he was Chonghua's Shihajun, and Gumong was a prisoner and slave of Shihe Manor, the great traitor to the nation. Neither of them would speak again of what happened last night, and neither would assign it any more meaning than an ephemeral dream. In the end, Moshi swept a final look around the room. He let the bamboo curtain fall and caught up to Gumong. The two of them still smelled like each other, yet acted like strangers as they trekked back in perfect silence. The life crystal in Moshi's possession had shown Yue Chunqing's condition to be much improved. Just as it predicted, when they returned to the cave, they found Yue Chunqing sitting against the wall, awake. But they were surprised to find Yue Chunqing's head lowered, tears rolling down his cheeks. His usually bright and shining eyes were swollen from crying, and he wiped his tears away, over and over with the back of his hand. "Fourth uncle, I really wasn't messing around." Still sobbing, he pathetically tried to explain himself to Murong Chuyi, who was standing beside him with an icy mien. "I just wanted to find a cure for you. Every year, before my birthday, you say you don't feel well, that you don't want to come. You what? I think you've lost your wits." Murong Chuyi swept his sleeves back and berated him through clenched teeth. "Do you not know your own worth? You're so unbelievably foolish as to come alone to these damned dream butterfly islands?" Yeah, I feel like I need a break because I'm like, what are we doing now? Like, there are other characters? Who are these people? Jiang Yeshue was sitting off to the side. He was weak from giving blood to Yue Chunqing, but he still coughed and said, Now, Chunqing meant well. Xiaojiu, he's barely woken up. You don't have to scold him so." Murong Chuyi shook off the hand Jiang Yeshue had laid on his sleeve. "I'll scold my own nephew if I please," he snapped. "Is it your place to act like a saint?" He turned back to rail at Yue Chunqing. "Forget about bringing me medicine before your birthday. If you were a bit less lucky, this time next year, I'd be bringing flowers to your grave. What will it be, peonies or roses? Yue Chunqing, are you trying to kill me from stress? Don't you know this life of yours came at the price of your mother's? Yet you hold it so cheaply." Ouch. Yue Chunqing looked up, his piteous sobs dying in his throat. He stared at Murong Chuyi, eyes wide with the smarting pain. No one present, neither Moshi, Gumong, nor even Yue Chunqing himself, had ever seen Murong Chuyi so furious that the rims of his eyes were scarlet. So Murong Chuyi had been holding back all this time, maintaining his outward impassivity out of concern for Yue Chunqing's health. If he was turning such rage on Yue Chunqing now, the goo worms must be entirely dealt with. But Murong Chuyi was already sick, and he had used forbidden techniques to keep Yue Chunqing alive, injuring his heart vein in the process. As fury filled him, he began to cough. At the sight of Yue Chunqing's expression, Jiang Yeshue knew Murong Chuyi had said too much. He reached out to pull on Murong Chuyi's sleeve again. Murong Chuyi's face drew taut with anger as he shoved Jiang Yeshue away. "I've told you not to touch me." He hadn't held back at all, and Jiang Yeshue had lost too much blood. He'd just been helping Yue Chunqing and wasn't sitting in his wheelchair. This shove sent him crumpling to the ground. Everyone around the cave was stunned into silence. Yue Chunqing stared blankly at Zhang Yexue, who'd collapsed with his wrists still bleeding. Yet Zhang Yexue seemed not to want to argue with Murong Chuyi. He'd always been humble and courteous, considerate and accepting of others' feelings. He tried to push himself up, lowering his lashes as he murmured, "If you're angry, don't take it out on Chunqing. If you're unhappy, vent it on me instead. You're the senior and we are your juniors, so it's fine if you push me or scold me." For some reason, Murong Chuyi grew only more incensed at this. His hands were shaking. He pointed at Zhang Yexue, his face alarmingly pale. "You." Zhang Yexue dropped his gaze to the ground. "Whatever Xiaojiu likes." Murong Chuyi was incandescent with rage. "How dare you?" He just raised his hand when a trembling voice cried out, "Why are you always so mean?" A deathly silence followed. No one expected this shout to be targeted at Murong Chuyi. Even the man himself was momentarily stunned, his sharp phoenix eyes flitting about before it dawned on him. He slowly turned around. Tears streamed down Yue Chunqing's face as he stared at his uncle with eyes full of heartbreak and grief. He lowered his voice, but it was saturated with disappointment and despair. "Do you only care for my mother? No matter how devoted we are to you, whether me or him, you still only rage at us and blame us." All color had drained from Murong Chuyi's face. It was white as paper. Yue Chunqing's features crumpled in his sad little face. Speaking to his uncle like this hurt him more surely than a knife to the gut, but his uncle's harsh words had wounded him deeply too. Even his sobs had changed in tone. For the first time, he stood in front of Zhang Yexue. "If anyone's at fault here, it's me, isn't it? He got hurt so badly and lost so much blood, all to save me. How could you still strike him and yell at him?" Zhang Yexue shook his head. "Chunqing." Murong Chuyi's lips were bloodless. His gaze flashed, his mouth moving, as if he was struggling immensely with some unspoken grievance. In the end, his fingers curled into fists, and only a few bitten-off syllables passed his lips. "Yue Chunqing, what do you know?" His piercing gaze fixed upon Zhang Yexue's face. Murong Chuyi's resentment was so deep the rims of his eyes were red, and he spoke through gritted teeth. "He's no more than a bastard." Now it was not only Yue Chunqing's expression that changed, but Moshi and Gumong's as well. They'd known Murong Chuyi for some time, and though it was true that he was aloof, they hadn't found him a monster who didn't know right from wrong. Neither had understood why he would be named one of Chonghua's 3 poisons. But when this blade of a word fell from his mouth and sank to the hilt in Zhang Yexue's heart, they suddenly realized that Murong Chuyi's resentment was far too harsh and cutting. Zhang Yexue's lashes trembled. He closed his eyes, then lowered his head and fell silent. Yue Chunqing turned tearful eyes upon Murong Chuyi. "Fourth uncle." His voice shook. The syllables strained like a bowstring drawn until the arrow flew. He dissolved into sobs. "Is your heart made of stone?" Well, that is the end of the chapter. We're on we're on page 97 for chapter 106, which is called Suggestive Traces. Okay. Yeah, Blue, I agree. The whiplash also makes the previous 2 chapters have a dirty secret vibe, which adds to the pain. If I recall, we know that Zhang Yexue, is it Zhang Yexue who had a secret? He told the pig demon, and the pig demon was like, "Oh, great," but like he wasn't allowed to tell anybody else. And I'm still wondering what is going on with this family. But knowing Meat Bun, we're probably not going to find out anytime soon. No one on earth was less likely to criticize Murong Chuyi than Yue Chunqing. Since he was little, he had worshipped and loved Murong Chuyi, this uncle with whom he shared not a drop of blood. This was the reason a pampered young master like him would follow Shihajun to the northern frontier. This was the reason he would pore over all manner of books and records for any hint of a magical panacea. He knew coming to Bat Island alone was a mistake. He'd started regretting it almost as soon as he set out, and had long since realized he was a failure who troubled his fourth uncle and the others to come to his rescue. But no matter how he apologized, Murong Chuyi didn't soften in the slightest. He lashed out at Yue Chunqing, scolding him for not valuing the life his mother died to give him. He said such heart-rending words to Jiang Yeshue, who had opened his own veins to save his nephew. Yue Chunqing was devastated. Fourth uncle, I know I'm no good. I'm too stupid and impulsive. I just wanted you to get better, but you won't tell me anything. What could I do but try to help you on my own? I'm sorry. I couldn't find a cure and caused you so much trouble, but... He closed his eyes, tears flowing down his face. Won't you even listen to my explanations? He continued. You say my life came at the price of my mother's, and Jiang. You say he's a bastard, but he didn't ask to be born to a concubine, and I didn't ask to kill my mother by being born. Why do you blame us? Fourth uncle, I revere you and love you. For so many years, I've agreed with all you say and adored all you do, but have you ever turned to look at me? Yue Chunqing sobbed. Have you ever seen me as your nephew, even once? Chunqing, forget it. Chuyi's... Jiang Yeshue murmured. Murong Chuyi's face was ashen. He cut Jiang Yeshue off, his bright brown eyes fixed on Yue Chunqing's face as he spat each word. Let him speak. Jiang Yeshue fell silent. Yue Chunqing wiped at his tears, hanging his head and sniffing. I don't know. I won't say any more. I shouldn't be rude to fourth uncle. I shouldn't talk back to fourth uncle. He muttered again and again, I shouldn't disagree with fourth uncle, as though to calm himself. But as he mumbled on and on, he buried his face in his hands and sobbed like a whimpering cub. Is it because you wish I was never born? Murong Chuyi froze. But my mother is dead. I'm not Murong Huang. I'm Yue Chunqing. The atmosphere in the cave turned glacial. Everyone could see Murong Chuyi trembling with the clashing emotions in his heart. His jade-like face flushed faintly as his bone-pale fingers curled into fists. He looked at Yue Chunqing, then at Jiang Yeshue, and closed his eyes. Very well, he gritted out. He took a step back, and his sharp brows drew together as he coughed up bloody spittle. He covered his mouth with a sleeve, hiding it from sight. Murong Chuyi opened his phoenix eyes, red-rimmed and glimmering. His gaze raked over his two nephews, its freezing glint hiding heartbreak. I've heard your explanation. I won't reprimand you any more, Yue Chunqing. His nails were digging into his palms so hard they nearly drew blood. But still he lifted his chin and assumed a cold calm. Fend for yourself. With a sweep of his sleeves, he turned to leave. Xiaojiu, Jiang Yeshue cried after him. The sight of Murong Chuyi's expression seemed to wake Yue Chunqing from a nightmare. He stared at his uncle's retreating silhouette in blank confusion, tear tracks shining on his face. Fourth uncle. But Murong Chuyi was gone. He pretended not to see Gumong and Moshi as he swept from the cave mouth, his face as pale as the first snow of winter. He took not a single look back. After more than a moment, Moshi broke the silence. How did it end up like this? Jiang Yeshue sighed. As soon as Chunqing woke up, Xiaojiu started in on him. He asked why he would come to the Bat Island alone, so Chunqing explained he wanted to find medicine for him. Xiaozhou. He felt it wasn't worth Chunqing risking his life, so he grew even angrier and berated Chunqing for being without sense. Xiaozhou's always had a temper. He doesn't mean it that way. I'm sorry. These Yue clan matters are rather embarrassing. Finding himself in the middle of this mess, Moshi wasn't sure what to say either. It wasn't his nature to meddle in the business of others, so he paused and said only, "It's too dangerous out there. I'll go after Murong." "Hey." Gumong grabbed his arm. "What is it?" "That hissy beauty is too smart to go far. He just wants to calm down. Didn't you see his face when he left?" Gumong glanced at Yue Chunqing and Zhang Yeshui, then lowered his voice so only Moshi could hear. He was so angry he was on the verge of tears. Moshi was stunned for a moment. Whose tears? Murong Chuyi's? Didn't he leave in a furious huff? Wouldn't it humiliate him if you went to look for him now? Give him some space, Gumong advised. Moshi hadn't noticed any such vulnerability in Murong Chuyi's expression, but Gumong had always been the more observant one. Since Gumong had spoken, he wouldn't insist even if he did disagree. Zhang Yeshui was worried. "I'm afraid my Xiaozhou." "Don't worry." Gumong stepped deeper into the cave, waving a hand. "You guys rest up a bit. I'll go find him in a little while, then we can set out for Chonghua." "You figured out where to break through the barrier?" "Duh. Did you forget who I am? I was already this great back when we hung around together." They tidied the inside of the cave. Gumong was the most idle among them, leaning against the cave wall to rest. He summoned his demonic dagger, spinning it in slender fingers. After playing with it for a time, he felt a pair of hesitant eyes quietly watching him. Gumong looked down and met the feathered girl Rongrong's wide eyes. "I almost forgot she was here." Rongrong didn't expect Gumong to suddenly notice her. She averted her gaze, but it was too late. Gumong smiled. "Hi, gorgeous. Why are you looking at me like that?" You... Oh! Rongrong's pretty face was red. Stumbling and hesitant, she murmured, You smell so strongly of him." And that's what the chapter title means. His fingers spinning the dagger froze. "Who?" he asked in surprise. Rongrong didn't make a sound, but her eyes flicked toward Moshi, who was standing next to Yue Chunqing, examining his wounds. Gumong's lips quirked up into a smile. "Oh, him. It's normal. We were sitting close to each other." "No, not that. You two seem like..." With a smile, Gumong laid a finger on her lips, then patted her head and leaned over to whisper in her ear. "Don't worry. I know how astute you feathered people are. Demon blood runs in my body, and you're sensitive to demon sense, right? But little beauty, demons and humans are not the same. While you're with us, you need to learn human rules. With some things, it's best to pretend you don't know. Behave, sweetheart." Hearing the soft rustle of their movements, Moshi turned. "What are you two doing?" Gumong drew back from Rongrong and grinned. "Nothing. I'm just teasing her." He reached out and flicked the flame marking on Rongrong's forehead. "Remember what I said. Why don't you get ready to leave the island with us?" Thanks to the vulnerability Gumong found in the barrier, evading Bat Island's defenses was the work of moments. The two nut boats broke past the clouds, and by the time the patrolling bat demons spied them, they were much too far away to pursue. Gumong had invited the feathered girl Rongrong onto the ship as well. Once they were deep in the sea of clouds, he brought her out from the cabin. "Mount Jiuhua is right below us here. Miss Rong, you can go home." Yeah. Damn, that was quick. And yes, they are nut boats, but that, as a phrase, that sure sounds funny. Rongrong leaned over the ship's rail and looked down. Beneath the vast layer of clouds, a greenish-blue mountain was visible, faintly glowing with the light of the feathered tribe's barrier. She couldn't help the pink flush that spread over her cheeks as she stared for a long while, lost for words, before turning to speak. Thank you, Da-Guga. Da-Guga, Gumong smiled. It's fine if you call us Da-Guga. Even if you're older than all of us, you look younger. You can call us whatever you'd like. You cured Chunqing of the goo, said Zhang Yeshui. It is us who owe you a debt of gratitude, so it would be too bold of me to accept your thanks. Zhang Yeshui performed an obeisance. Miss, take care. Rongrong was eager to go home. After bidding farewell to all of them one last time, dazzling gold-red wings sprouted from her back, and she gracefully leapt into the sea of clouds and disappeared into the golden light far below. Gumong sighed. All right, we've performed the rescue and cured the poison. Time to go home and rest. But you guys can't sell me out, he warned. I plan to keep pretending to be stupid when I return to Changhua, just as we agreed. Yue Chunqing was standing beside the mast with the thick coat draped over his shoulders, staring blankly at Murong Chuyi's pleasure boat in the distance. He'd not yet been apprised of Gumong's situation, and at these words turned to Gumong in shocked silence. What did we agree? Before Gumong could answer, Zhang Yeshui cut in. Don't worry, I'll explain it to him later. You two must have had a long night. Go back to the cabin and rest. Once we reach the capital, you'll need to report to His Imperial Majesty. Sure, I'll rest. But can you change rooms with Shihajun? Gumong asked. You can sleep with me, and Shihajun can sleep in a different cabin. Yeah, the whole extended chapters of smut made me completely forget, like, what they needed to do, to get off the island. Like, all the breaking barrier stuff, I'm just like, what barrier? What was that about? I totally forgot. Zhang Yeshui hesitated. Did you two fight again? Haven't we been fighting the whole time? More like we never stopped. Gumong smiled. Look, he hates me so much he's gnashing his teeth. Plus, he looks so deliciously pretty. Don't forget I'm an insane Liao Kingdom demon. If I get too excited, I might end up defiling and killing him. What would we do then? Moshi and Zhang Yeshui stared. I'd really appreciate it. If it's too much of a bother, I'll go over to Murong Shensheng's boat and make do for a night. It's no bother at all, Zhang Yeshui replied. And Xiao Zhou is in a temper right now. We shouldn't disturb him. He gave Gumong a small smile. If it makes Gu Xiang more comfortable. Zhang Xiang is as accommodating as ever. How nice. Gumong batted his eyelashes at him, lips curving into a smile. Then he lifted the bamboo curtain and ducked into the cabin. Moshi stood silent for a moment, then announced, I'll go rest too. He disappeared into the other cabin. Yue Chunqing was stupefied. What happened between those two? He stammered. It's a long story. If you don't mind hearing it from me, I'll tell it to you from the beginning. With a twitch of his fingertips, Zhang Yeshui wheeled his chair over to Yue Chunqing. Chunqing, are you willing to hear me out? Yue Chunqing looked at Murong Chuyi's ship in the sea of clouds, then glanced down at Zhang Yeshui's wounded wrist. He hung his head. I'm sorry. I made things difficult for you all. You've said sorry many times. It's water under the bridge, replied Zhang Yeshui. Just don't be so reckless next time. You see how we all worry about you, whether it's your father, your bofu, your uncle, or me. You meant well. You didn't act out of mischief. I know this, and I'm sure Xiao Zhou knows as well. His temper's always been like this when he's anxious. Don't think he doesn't care for you. Yue Chunqing stood in dejected silence and didn't raise his head. Zhang Yeshui instructed 2 little clay people to bring cushions and desserts. Sit down, he said to Yue Chunqing. You've just recovered, so have a snack. You'll feel better if you eat something sweet, like a flour cake. Give it a try. The dawn breeze ruffled Yue Chunqing's hair. He sat down as told, watching the crooked little clay person that came to deliver snacks, then voiced his thanks and started nibbling on the cake. When half of it had disappeared, he reluctantly lifted his head. Did giving blood hurt? The wound on your wrist looks really deep. I have medicine. I have medicine too. Zhang Yixue smiled, his eyes like two clear pools scattered with jasmine blossoms, their subtle fragrance rippling outward. Don't worry. It doesn't hurt, and I don't blame you. You don't need to be so nervous with me. Yue Chunqing's eyes were a little red. His head hung so low his chin nearly touched his chest. I'm sorry. Zhang Yixue sighed deeply. Silly child, why are you apologizing again? I treated you so badly before, but you still helped me like this. I feel very sorry. The light flush reddening his ears spread to his cheeks as his voice grew thick with shame and embarrassment. I'm apologizing on Fourth Uncle's behalf, too. We shouldn't have said that about you. He set down the flour cake, hesitated for a moment, then raised bright, limpid eyes. Qingshu Elder. Thank you. Henry, not the Danny Moda voice. You could call it a kind of fight. He still wouldn't call Zhang Yixue Dage, but at least he didn't just say hey or call him by his full name with no mark of respect. Zhang Yixue smiled, his cheerful expression like pearls beneath water, like flowers in the wind or feathery snow falling over a river in the dead of night. I don't blame you, and of course I won't blame him, Zhang Yixue said softly. I've lost many people. My mother, my wife, my family. I understand some things a little better than you. Nothing is so important compared to life and death, and I won't bother quarreling over unimportant things. Also, he's a good person. Back when we were at Yuan Manor, he never bullied me. Do you still want to come back to Yuan Manor? Yue Chunqing asked. I'm teaching at the academy now, and all the disciples are very cute. Zhang Yixue turned and smiled. Whether I come back or not, this isn't important either. Yue Chunqing sighed softly. You're so even-tempered. If only Fourth Uncle could be the same. Then he wouldn't be Murong Chuyi, chuckled Zhang Yixue. All right, let's speak no more of these things. Once he's cooled down, I'll talk to him properly. Weren't you curious about Gumong a moment ago? I'll tell you what happened. Yue Chunqing nodded, pulling over a cushion and sitting closer to Zhang Yixue. Zhang Yixue's voice was soft as flowing water. Have you ever heard of the Time Mirror? By the time he finished telling the whole story, the sun was high in the sky. He produced a well-crafted yet very old little clock from his robes. The clock was unique. It held neither water nor sand, but scarlet beads. After looking down at it, Zhang Yixue said, It's getting late. Use this time to rest before we return to the capital. Remember to keep Guxiang's secret. We made him a promise. Yue Chunqing went off to sleep, and Zhang Yixue directed the little clay people to put away his cushion and the leftover tea and snacks. The walnut ship's sails fluttered in the wind as it soared under the vault of the sky. Zhang Yixue sat beside the ship's railing, looking into the distance at Murong Chuyi's vessel. As he watched, the bamboo curtain on Murong Chuyi's pleasure boat rolled up, revealing a man's sickly face. Murong Chuyi seemed to have many things weighing on his mind, and had opened the curtain for some fresh air. But he took not a single breath before he noticed Zhang Yixue watching him through the banks of clouds. Murong Chuyi stopped cold. Zhang Yeshui gave him a tiny smile, his gentle face bathed in dazzling golden sunshine. With a twirl of his fingers, he conjured a paper crane and sent it gliding toward Murong Chuyi's bamboo window. Murong Chuyi slammed the curtain down with a discourteous crash. The paper crane stuttered in midair. It turned with a rustle and gazed clumsily at Zhang Yeshui. Honk? No matter if he's angry, send the message, Zhang Yeshui instructed. Honk! Having received its orders, the paper crane flapped its wings and transformed into a beam of golden light that darted unheedingly behind Murong Chuyi's tightly closed window curtain. Propping his elbows on the armrests of his wheelchair, Zhang Yeshui put a hand to his chin. Moments later, he watched the paper crane he'd folded tossed furiously out the window, crumpled into a tight ball. Zhang Yeshui arched a brow, unbothered. Then he shook his head, chuckling softly, and stepped into the cabin he now shared with Gumong. There is art. Hold on. I'm not 100% sure who we're looking at in the art. Is it Murong Chuyi? Like, receiving the paper crane? And he has the reflection of the other one in his eyes, but I don't know if you can see that. But I think... I'm not sure. It's Murong Chuyi. Okay. Gumong was exhausted. He'd already fallen asleep under the blankets. Oh, dear. I looked at the bottom of the page accidentally. Okay. Gumong was exhausted. He'd already fallen asleep under the blankets. The faint scent of soap hung in the air. He must have just bathed. Yet this piqued Zhang Yeshui's curiosity. Gumong was famously lazy and didn't like to bathe before sleeping. He'd always preferred to bathe in the morning. Zhang Yeshui had been his comrade for many years. He still remembered this quirk of Gumong's. Why would he suddenly change his habits? When Gumong had come in earlier, Zhang Yeshui had noticed the heavy weariness in his eyes despite his efforts to feign alertness. What was going on? He looked at Gumong over, but saw nothing strange. Zhang Yeshui was about to tidy up and go to bed. Just as Zhang Yeshui was about to tidy up and go to bed, a thought occurred to him. He froze. His dark brown eyes slowly scanned the scene, landing on the hair ribbon Gumong hadn't removed. It was black with gold trim. Moshi's hair ribbon. And that's the end of the chapter. And it's 4:57. So I kind of have to stop now. Well, I guess that's the other suggestive trace. I love how we had, like, a hint of the chapter title meaning at, like, the beginning of the chapter with what Wrong noticed. But then that was just kind of, like, brushed to the side. Like, whatever, Wrong, don't tell anybody. Like, you know, we dropped her off. She's gone. Now we get to the end of the chapter, and here we are. And there is the other suggestive trace. Oh, meat bun. So I guess when we come back on Monday, we will be on page 109 for chapter 107, which is his only stain. Oh, Henry, your laptop died. What happened in the last few sentences? Did you already hear Gumong was famously lazy and didn't like to bathe before sleeping? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Gumong is still wearing Moshi's ribbon. It's Gumong goes back to rest in the room with Zhang Yeshui, who he's now sharing a room with. And yeah, that's what Zhang Yeshui notices. I had flipped to the last page of the chapter and looked down and just saw something about the ribbon, and I was like, oh no, that's a big detail to forget about. I also love that because of the significance that Gumong wearing ribbons that he's not supposed to wear has had in the past. Oh my god. Just Meat Bun keeps doing it. Oh. There was a focus on Gumong tying the ribbon to make himself look normal before. I didn't even catch that. But that's where we're at. It kind of feels like a big cliffhanger to leave on, but unfortunately we have to wait until next week. They tried so hard to dress carefully too. I know. Sarah Emery. I think I pronounced your name wrong last time because I thought it was like one word, but it's Sarah Emery, right? Yeah, they tried really hard. They almost escaped unnoticed, at least by the other humans. But nope. Well. Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. I got it right this time. Oh, yeah, and it's not, blue. I know it's not the same ribbon, like the ceremonial ribbon, but I just like that there's a thing about hair ribbons. Even if it's not the same one, it feels kind of significant. I don't know. Yeah. Well, when we come back on Monday, we will find out, what's going on. Oh, right. Did I mention the chapter title is called His Only Stain? Yeah. So, I will see y'all next week. Have a great rest of your week. Peace out.